Today's video is sponsored by LoopDeck. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been using the LoopDeck Live. It's a tool that makes live streaming and creative work easier. I've been using it mostly in Adobe Premiere while editing videos and in OBS Studio during the live stream. My favorite part about the LoopDeck Live are these 6 hardware dials. I can manually assign different audio sources to them, and it allows me to adjust my microphone, the in-game volume, and my music without having to actually alt-tab out of the game during the live stream. Besides the hardware dials, it has programmable buttons on the touchscreen and at the bottom of the device. Everything is fully customizable, so you can set it up to however you like. Many different applications are natively supported in the software, so if you're a creator, use the link in the top line of the description of this video to learn more. Alright, so today it's time for a match of Zerg versus Protoss that I am playing at the exact same time as I'm also giving commentary to this game. I will try my very best to explain everything that's going on, and hopefully, at least in theory, maybe you can take something from this video away in your own games as well. I just noticed that one of my settings is a little bit wrong. Let me go ahead and enable the worker status so we can see how many workers there are right there on my main base. Alrighty, so this is a Zerg versus Protoss. Now, Zerg versus Protoss is for many people a very complicated matchup right now, especially since they very recently buffed up the Void Ray. It seems like a lot of the games come down to that Void Ray aggression, especially in the earlier stages of the game. Now, with Zerg versus Protoss, it's super important that you try and figure out what Protoss is going for in the first couple of minutes, so you can decide how many workers you can actually produce. So I'm gonna go for a hatch first at 16 supply, then an 18 gas geyser, and now followed up by a spawning pool. Since that probe is currently inside of my main base, I'm not really too concerned anymore about a cannon rush, so I'm currently sending my second Overlord, the very first one that I made at 13 supply, across the map. First one is going to check out the front over here to see if everything is considered to be standard. I'll add on a pretty quick third hatchery as well, just because this looks like a normal macro opener here from the Protoss player. And, you know, generally speaking, like, if they're harassing your mineral line like that, it's because they're going for a pretty quick nexus on the low ground, trying to get that small mineral advantage. So I feel relatively confident right now, already putting down that third hatchery at this point in the game. We'll be able to confirm this in just a little bit with my very first Overlord. So I'm expecting to see a cybernetic score just about to finish up. If we see that exact thing, we know that this is going to be a, yep, there we go, a very quick expansion from the Protoss player. In this particular game. So, we don't even really need to see the Nexus, just judging by the timing of that cybernetic core, we know we're good. So I'm gonna pull 2 drones out of gas for now. We'll start up the Zergling speed upgrade, and I want to try and see if I can potentially get these Zerglings inside of my opponent's main base. So, we'll harass this probe here for a little bit. It might not necessarily happen, but I leave that Overlord a little bit further out of the wall to try and make sure that we can see where his Adept is going to be running. So he's probably chrono boosting out the Adept. There we go. We see that it's shading towards the right-hand side of the map. We know that the Adept over there is moving through the center. So my Zerglings here on the left-hand side of the map should be relatively safe. Hopefully we can get into the main base. Might not necessarily happen, but we'll give it a try. I made a couple of additional Zerglings here. 2 additional Queens coming up as well. Can I get in there before the next gateway unit spawns? It looks like we will. And that's going to give me my full scout here. I'm looking for the second pylon. Okay, so a gateway and a Stargate. So this is everything that we need to know right now. I can figure out exactly how aggressive I'm going to be able to be when it comes to that drone count here very, very shortly. Okay, is there a drone yet over at my third? There's not. I'll add on a couple more Zerglings here because link speed is just about to finish up. And I'm actually even going to be sending this Overlord all the way back, because I don't think we're going to really need that follow-up scout just yet. Okay, so this just now gave us the full intel that we need. So I'll go ahead and add on some Spore Crawlers here at 330. Gonna make sure that I keep as many workers alive. Now, I did hit a bit of a supply block here because talking and playing at the same time is rather tricky. So excuse any mistakes that I will make here. Looks like a probe is already on its way right there over to the third base. Normally a third base for Protoss will land at about the 5-minute mark. So if this guy's already thinking about making a third, this is giving me like the full-on go-ahead to make as many workers as I possibly want to. I could go ahead and make a lot of drones here, which would not be a terrible idea. But generally speaking, I prefer being the, you know, the macro focus Zerg. Although this is certainly, like, if you wanted to play more aggressively, this is certainly a moment to potentially get aggressive as well. Notice as well that I haven't really seen any follow-ups from him just yet, so I haven't seen a Stargate unit, which makes me a little bit concerned. Okay, there's a Void Ray over there at the third. Okay, so the Void Rays usually are a good idea to make some extra queens against that. Now, I'll go ahead and start up the lair here. We'll add on extra gas. We'll go for a Evo chamber. And we'll just make as many drones as I possibly can. So my priority at this point is mostly adding on workers with any available larvae. And then whenever I have additional... Well, obviously I need overlords as well. But whenever I have additional leftover minerals, we'll add on extra queens. Okay, add on additional gases now that I'm finishing up the mineral saturation over there at the third base. We'll add on a Roach Warren as well. +1 missile will go up. And ideally, I want to transition here a little bit later into Roaches and Hydralisks. I don't really know exactly what his follow-up is going to be, right? So I think this Overlord will probably be dedicated to scouting here in a little bit. I'm getting Overlord speed. Looks like there's a second Ovi. Stalker currently inside of that wall off. Let's go ahead and saturate the gases over at the third base. Now, my mineral saturation here is a little bit on the sloppier end of things, primarily because it is a little difficult to talk and play at the same time. All right, I'll plant down a fourth base. This is a little bit greedy, but mostly because I've been mis-macroing a little bit. I think it's fine. It's better than having some dead minerals. I'll get a Hydra Den right now as well, and I do want to get that scouting information here very shortly with my my Overseer to see if maybe it's a second Stargate or if it's a Robo follow-up or... you know, whatever he's got in store for me from here. Okay. We'll add on additional queens once again. Queens are very helpful. We've got 5 of them at this point. Okay, so it's triple Stargate Void Ray. Triple Stargate Void Ray basically means that he is not planning on getting Storm here anytime soon. So we can go for an all-out assault with... Ooh, he might actually be heading on over to... No, he's going over here. We might just be able to go into a Hydra timing attack. We're trying to target fire down here. That's good. This is a little bit shaky. Hello. Okay. Trying to add on as many Hydralisks here as I can. I might end up losing the main here. Yep. Not the end of the world. Assuming that we don't lose too much here as a follow-up. We can transfer those drones over there. We'll start up a second lair. I'll go for a +2 upgrade here very shortly. Actually, I can't get +2 obviously right now, because I lost the lair. But the idea still counts. So we lost a couple drones. We lost the lair, but nothing really too crazy. I'll go ahead and add on here as many units as I possibly can. Now, with the triple Stargate Void Ray opener, usually they will not get Storm out very quickly at all. So I'm thinking about maybe going for a timing attack towards his third base here. Once we finish up the Hydra upgrades, and we'll bring the Queens along to the party as well. Normally, Queens and Hydras are a bit of a difficult unit to push with. But I think this might just work out. I already added on a 5th hatch there on the right-hand side of the map too. Now maybe that one is gonna finish. Yeah, maybe that one is not gonna finish up. That's okay. That one was mostly in case we ended up losing another hatch. Okay, transfuse. Okay. So I've currently got quite a few queens. We'll try and spread creep towards his third base. Brenda, no! That's okay. So it's a very Void Ray heavy army. It may be tempting to go into, like, say, Corruptors or something along those lines, but Corruptors absolutely get smashed by these units. I'm gonna start up the march across the map. I'll make extra queens once again now to reinforce all of this. Queens are currently marching across. We want to hit them over here. Ideally, we want queens in the front. +1 armor here is going to finish up. Okay, so we're maxed out. Let's see. This is very much so a macro check right now. Okay, we'll shut down that thing. Very good. Okay, queens in the front as much as we can. Transfuses here. And as many units as we can as well. Okay, storm is done at this point, but pretty late. Ooh, those are juicy storms here for him. He's out of energy, though. These things just finished up. Very good. Reinforcing it with as much as I can.
Insufficient energy.
Inject.
Command unacceptable. Not enough.
Do we have enough right now to break through this? I think with perfect macro, I probably would have been able to. And, well, even though I messed up a little bit here along the way, we did successfully achieve the victory. So, in Zerg versus Protoss in particular, there's a couple of scouting moments that are pretty important. First off, you can get a lot of information from just this Overlord right over here. So this Overlord does a couple of things. First off, it sees where my opponent is spending Chrono Boost. Generally speaking, if they Chrono Boost that gateway twice, it means that it's a double Adept opener. It can see what he is producing out of this gateway as well. So if it's an Adept first, we should be able to spot the Adept moving by this Overlord. That alone is already a really nice tell. So seeing what my opponent is sending across the map is super helpful, because this ultimately allowed me to get those Zerglings in without being forced to sacrifice you know, an Overlord to get that scouting information. So I sent my links right over here towards the left-hand side of the map. I see that the Shade goes towards the right, the Adept goes through the center, which means that these links can make a beeline straight towards my opponent's natural. Now, on some maps, the timings here don't quite work out, and that Stalker would have already finished up. But on most maps, this is a pretty okay move to make, and you can pretty reliably get information. So that's the first task of this Overlord. It's trying to figure out if I can get Zerglings in. If I wouldn't have been able to, I would have suicided in this Overlord instead. Upon scouting the Stargate, though, I know that that Overlord is not going to be able to figure out too much. I mean, it would be able to figure out if this is a Void Ray first, or an Oracle, or a Phoenix. But I mean, that's going to come at the cost of the Overlord, and usually that doesn't seem to provide too much. So rather than showing it to him, I decide to just, you know, do a bit of a weird pattern over there to send it back towards safety. Now, once again, if those Zerglings wouldn't have been able to get in because of that Stalker finishing up or because the Adept found them, I would obviously just, you know, scout in with the Overlord instead, and then we would still figure it out. So that's pretty important. When it comes to that very first Overlord, actually, so this is a nice bit of information that helped me out quite a bit. Generally speaking, you want to keep this Overlord in your natural expansion until the hatchery is about halfway done, or until you know that it's not going to be a cannon rush. Now, how do you know that it's a cannon rush? First off, you see a second probe. So if this Overlord over here would have seen a second probe move across, that's going to give me quite a bit of intel. There's no reason for Protoss to scout with 2 workers unless they plan on being hyper aggressive. So, you know, seeing that there's only a single probe out on the map, at least up to this point, is very helpful. And also seeing that the probe is harassing my mineral line. It's not a guarantee that it's not a cannon rush, but the odds, you know, are pretty big that, or they're pretty good rather, that this is not going to be a cheeky little opener right here by the Protoss player. So, at this point, I feel confident enough to put down the 3rd hatchery and to, you know, just send this Overlord across the map. So, this Overlord from here, if the Zerglings would have not gotten in, right? Basically, when the hatch is halfway done, I would normally send it straight through the main base of the opponent, and that currently works on all maps. So the first Overlord, you make a 13 supply, you hang it in a natural until the natural is about halfway done. When you confirm it's not a cannon rush, you can send this one straight through the center of the map into your opponent's main base. So my rally point on this bad boy is currently set right over here. Happens to be exactly where his Stargate is going to be located a little while later, but you're essentially looking with that Overlord for the second pylon. So by the time that Overlord arrives, the Protoss player will really effectively only have 2 pylons. All of their supply is coming from those 2 nexi that they have, and those 2 pylons only. So if you know that 1 pylon is at the front, you know the cybernetics core is done, the tech structure has to be attached to either that first pylon, which at this point I know it wasn't, or to that second pylon. So that's what you're looking for with that second Overlord, once again, if those Zerglings ended up going down. Now, from there, there's a couple of different follow-ups, right? So Protoss can follow this up with either a Stargate, a Robo, or a Twilight Council. Now, if anyone is interested, I'm going to specifically address the Stargate opener in this one, but I can definitely make, you know, future videos, I guess, and make this like a series. Let me know down below in the comment section if you would like to see more content like this. Anyways, in this particular case, it's a Stargate opener, so my follow-up is pretty much always the same. First off, we need to get a couple of Spore Crawlers. The timing on Spore Crawlers is usually 3:35, 3:30, depending once again on the size of the map. The reason for that is that the Oracle would usually arrive at about the 4-minute mark if this was an Oracle opener. I know at this point that it's not because I haven't seen an Oracle, but I haven't seen a Phoenix either. So I'm a little bit late right here on my follow-up scout to confirm that it's indeed going to be a Void Ray. Now, honestly, this Void Ray probably should have killed this Overlord. Yeah, I don't know why he didn't. This is, by the way, an unranked game because, you know, I don't really want to ruin my main MMR. So the MMR right here of the opponent is a little bit lower than the Protoss players I normally face on the ladder. You know, like he probably should have seen, yeah, that Overlord there a little bit sooner. So at the very least, I get confirmation at this point what kind of opener it is. There's an argument to be made that at this point, it's worth delaying the Spore Crawlers a little bit because Void Ray and Phoenix openers are rather common at this point. But honestly, if you're like anywhere below, I would say 5,500 MMR, so 5.5k, just make the Spore Crawlers. Just make it easy on yourself. If you know it's a Stargate opener in particular, 330 spores. If you don't know what kind of opener Protoss is going for, 330 spores is still a good idea because Dark Templar would also arrive about 4 minutes and 10-ish seconds. So 330 spores is a very easy way to not die to stupid stuff in this matchup in particular. Now, because of the fact that I know that it's a Stargate opener, right? His follow-ups are going to be the following. Most often, you will currently see 1 additional Stargate or 2 additional Stargates, or a standard transition towards gateways, robotics units, so like Immortals and then Sentries, right? So those are the 2 most common follow-ups. I know that when he opens up with a Stargate and the 3rd base, he's not going to be able to push really anytime soon. Because of that, I feel confident enough to drone up to straight full 3-base saturation. So up to this point, I've made 11 Zerglings and I've lost like a handful of them. So I have made like 14 Zerglings in total. If my opponent would have opened up the same way, but he would not have had a 3rd base by say the 5-minute mark, I would have started producing a lot of units right away. So 5 minutes is usually the timing for a 3rd base. It's usually between the 4 and the 5-minute mark. If I don't see a 3rd base at this point, I feel confident with the worker count that I have to hold a 2-base all in, as long as I just hold down my unit button right now. So the scout of the main base with that Overlord or with the Zerglings, and then the scout of his 3rd base timing is super important, right? So those are the 2 scouting points that I've got at this point. Next up, I start about a 4.5-minute lair with a Evo Chamber and then a Roach Warren shortly after. We're adding on gases whenever I'm full with mineral saturation, so we don't add on the gases too quickly. That's a common mistake, actually, that I see quite a bit with people that I do coaching with in StarCraft 2. If you add on the gases too quickly, you find yourself with too much gas and too little minerals. So usually the standard is to add on gases when you're done with mineral saturation. So this is a little bit over, right? Ideally, you want to start up the gases at like 16, 17, 18 drones. On minerals, that is. And then you go gas. Anyhow, I basically just held down the drone button here for a while. Now, at 3-base saturation, this is the point where you really do want to start adding on quite a few units. So once you're done making workers for your 3 bases, when you're up against a Protoss player who's going 3 bases, you want to make sure that you get quite a few, you know, units going here, pretty much no matter what. At this point, though, I still don't know if it's a multiple Stargate opener or what exactly his plan is. So right when we get to Lair Tech, I decide to morph in an Overseer. This goes for all matchups. So whenever you get to Lair Tech, morphing in an Overseer right away is a very good idea. And this one confirms the follow-up route here from my opponent. So at this point, I'm blindly making a couple of roaches, because I know I'm probably going to need at least some of them. I'm getting up a 4th base as well. Maybe that's a little bit greedy, but I think it turned out just fine in this particular game, because my macro was just a little sloppy. So I see the follow-up right now from my opponent, and it's a triple Stargate. Now, triple Stargate equals late Storm. So Stargate units by themselves are not that amazing without Psionic Storm. So obviously they're scary. They can put on a lot of damage. If it's carriers, for example, though, you might want to follow up with like some Corruptors instead. But generally speaking, whenever you know it's a Stargate opener, maxing out on Hydralisks at least once is a very good idea. Okay, now I know some people would panic when I lost the main base here, right? But let's actually take up stock at this point. So I am gonna end up killing at least, I think I've killed one. No, actually, I've not killed a Void Ray yet. I'm gonna be killing a Void Ray here very shortly. A little bit of miscontrol right there on that Hydralisk. So I end up losing a hatchery here at the cost of 2 Void Rays, right? Is that worth it for him? It's probably just barely worth it, but it's not really the end of the world, because I already followed this up with a base, so I can transfer these drones. Plus, I made an extra base on the right-hand side of the map as well, just in case another hatchery would fall. So, even though we lost the lair, and yes, I'm gonna have to reproduce that, and yes, I would rather go into +2 missile rather than +1 carapace here, I already got the Hydralisk tech out, so I know at this point I've got 2 Void Rays that, you know, are not gonna be present with the next follow-up push. Now, if this would have been a follow-up where my opponent would go double Stargate, and then, you know, follow it up with more and more gateway units as well, if I saw that it was only a double Stargate follow-up or a Robo follow-up, I would be more hesitant to go in for a push with Queens and Hydras, just because Storm is usually going to be done quite a bit more, and there's going to be more High Templar, or quite a bit sooner, and there's going to be more High Templar with energy for Storms. So if that were to be the case, I'd probably play a little bit more passively and push only with Roaches and Hydras once I see my opponent taking a 4th base here. This is a bit of a missed opportunity here for me. I should have Zerglings out on the map, be it Burrowed or an Overlord or whatever. I should have a Vision out on the map for this 4th base, which would make it a little bit easier, and I maybe would have gone for a push in the direction of this high ground, so I can decide where I want to push instead, rather than over here at the 3rd base. So I get over here, I see that he's got this group of batteries charged up, or you know, like only pyloned up right there by a single pylon, so I know that I'm in a pretty good spot. I want to have the Queens tanking the damage so I can transfuse. So there are some Storms available here. In a lot of cases, you'll probably find that the opponent does not have Storm yet at this point. So he transitioned to it relatively quickly. But he's only got a couple of Storms. So assuming we don't take too much damage here, it's okay. We do obviously have both of the Hydra upgrades. So without Muscular Augments, this would be an absolute disaster. I think I could have done a better job, you know, getting out of that Storm there. But as long as we don't, you know, lose too much here, it's all fine. So I'm reinforcing this with as much as I possibly can. You can see that my macro here, while these engagements are going on, is still happening as well. Another common mistake that happens quite a bit when people get very carried away in macroing. But at this point, I'm just rallying as many units across the map. And after shutting down his army, he's got nothing left to defend his bases. And I'm basically doubling here him in supply. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Let me know down below in the comment section of it if you would like to see more like this. I can definitely go ahead and post more videos where I over-explain what's going on in the future as well. So let me know down below. I never really know exactly if anyone's going to be interested in this sort of thing, because this is a very strategic talk, right? It's very different than the videos that I normally post. But anyways, for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an awesome day. Don't forget to smile, and I'll see you once again in the next one.